A very good morning to you. Today we are going to look at the OSI model. Now, what does OSI stand for? OSI stands for Open System Interconnection. Now, an open system interconnections model is a conceptual model that is used to standardize networks or network communication. So this is what we're gonna look at this morning. So this OSI model is divided into about 7 layers, which I am going to explain one by one. Okay, so these are the 7 layers that we need to look at. The first layer is called a physical layer. Now, a physical layer is a layer that has got cables, NIC, which are network interface cards, hubs. So these are hardware devices that are used in networking. So my cables, the physical things that we use in networking for transmitting data, like data nofamba in through my networks, through my cables. I mean, my network interface cards, my hubs. Okay, my hubs, they are just connections that are used to connect my Ethernet devices. Okay, we move on to the next layer. Next layer is called the data link layer. Called the data link layer. Now, data link layer, mnenge muneki. Data link layer ndo mune ma MAC address. Nema switches. Okay, so we are saying a MAC address is a media address that is temporarily assigned to a network interface card for communication. Okay, and it is a unique address that identifies things like differently. And in a data link layer, we also find switches. Switches. They switch between networks. So this is the data link layer. We move on to the network layer. Now, a network layer Has got IP addresses and routers. Okay, it comprises of IP addresses and routers. So an IP address, it's an address that uniquely identifies a device in a network. Okay, this computer IP address here ichi, this phone yapinda network, it know its unique IP address, things like that. And routers, routers ndo anohandla devices anenge ari munetwork yedu. Okay, we move on to transport layer. Transport. Now, the transport layer has got protocols like TCP, UDP, and it also has port numbers. Port numbers. Now, TCP stands for Transmission Control Protocol. So it is a protocol that governs the transmission of data over a network. Okay. Then we move on to another one, which is the session layer. Now, the session layer is responsible for starting and ending sessions. Start and end session. That's the session layer. So once a communication starts, it's more like a session has started. So the session layer will be responsible for starting and ending these sessions or a communication between two devices in a network. The next one is the presentation layer. Now, a presentation layer is the one that is responsible for the format of data. And things like encryption. So we're saying per format of data, panepekuti data converts from words into an IP address. Encryption kuti data iri arisukufana kuvhurwa nemunhu asina this code or whatever the case might be. Zvese zvinoitika presentation layer. Last but not least, we need to look at the application layer. Alright, so on the application layer, that's when we have protocols like SMTP, meaning Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, things like HTTP. I'm sure you've come across this from my browser. Things like FTP. HTTP stands for Hypertext Transmission Protocol. FTP is for File Transfer Protocol. So it all depends with what you're transferring. If there are files, it uses the FTP. If it's a mail, it uses the SMTP. If it's text, it uses the HTTP. And we have the telnet. So for you to easily remember this sequence, you can simply recall all people seem to need data processing. So A for application, P for people, so P anga kume representation, patoti sim wakuzoti that session, patoti 2 that's transport, patoti need that's network, patoti data that's data link, patoti processing that's physical. This is how you can easily remember this OSI model. Now I want to give you a real life example of how this thing works. Let's say you're sending an email to someone. So let's start with the application. What happens if you send an email is it uses this SMTP, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. The moment you start, you send an email, because this is the protocol that is used to transfer mails. From there, it goes to the presentation layer, where it is being formatted using maybe the ASCII or something to another format that is required, and all the encryption are also done. Okay, at presentation. So you're saying the IP address of the mail server is being formatted into another format. Then we move to the session. What happens with the mail at the session? That's when the mail server is started. Okay? The session, because remember we said session is responsible for starting and ending session. So the mail server will then be started at the session layer. From there, our mail will use TCP, which is the Transmission Control Protocol, because it is being transferred from the sender to the receiver. So it uses the Transmission Control Protocol. Okay. From there, we move to the network. What happens to the mail at the network layer? The IP address of the server is added as the destination, and source IP address is also added to the data. Then we move to the data link layer. The data link layer is concerned with MAC addresses and switches. So the MAC address of the mail is also added to the data, because each and every mail will have its own MAC address. Then from there, we are now at the physical layer. The data will be sent to the network using the Ethernet cables. So this is an example of a real-life example of how the OSI model works. Thanks for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this tutorial. Goodbye.